Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and today I'm going to be reviewing a wuxia movie by Chor Yuen called Web of Death. It was released in 1976, and it's a Shaw Brothers film. It's sort of based on Heaven's Sword and Dragon Saber, but I think it's also loosely inspired by another movie that was based on that story called Thundering Sword, starring Cheng Pei Pei. There's a lot of similarities between this movie and this film, so much so that I think that there's somewhat of a connection, even though, again, it's based on source material that Thundering Sword drew from also. And if you've ever seen any of the Heaven's Sword Dragon Saber series, a lot of this movie will be familiar to you. That said, there's a lot of other elements that he adds in that are totally different. So there's like 5 Venoms in this movie, and this came out in '76. So it's before the 5 deadly venoms. I've seen a lot of people say online that this was sort of inspired by that or taking that in. I don't know exactly where the 5 deadly venoms takes its inspiration from, but this definitely precedes the 5 deadly venoms. So I would think it's the other way around, if anything. But again, I don't know much about sort of the venom mythos. So if anybody wants to weigh in and tell me where Chang Che got his ideas from for that one, I'd certainly like to hear them in the comments. So this is a really cool movie. This is a review where I've just seen the movie for the first time. I hadn't seen this movie before. A lot of times I talk about films that I've seen a bunch of times and I maybe saw again to refresh my memory before the review. But this is a movie, I just saw it last night. I got the Blu-ray. I watched it with the subtitles first, and then I watched it with the dubs, and I'm going to get into sort of some of the differences. The plot revolves around a super lethal weapon called the 5 Venom Spider. The Venom clan has this powerful weapon. It's so powerful that one of the leaders puts it into hiding because he just thinks it's like a nuclear bomb. He just thinks it's too deadly and it's too horrific to use. So we fast forward, the current chief is still sort of following that policy, and an upstart sub-chief played by Lo Lie is trying to take over the sect and acquire this weapon and then use it to wipe out the righteous sects. And in the mix, we have a sort of a love story between a disciple from Wudang and the daughter of the chief of the Venom sect, Susu. So, and that part of the story is sort of where they take from the very beginning of Heaven's Sword and Dragon Saber. So it's not the whole story of Heaven's Sword Dragon Saber. It's just that first part where Wuji's parents are dealt with, and the story and the outcome's a little different. The storyline's a little bit different, but you can definitely tell it's the same. The same story with the crippled brother and sort of the misunderstandings and everything, except no Wuji in this one. So it's an interesting take on that by adding in the Venoms, because it's a whole different Susu's sect is totally different in the Heaven's Sword. In this one, it's much more like a 5 deadly venoms type martial sect. By adding that in and replacing the sword with the 5 Venom Spider, it really changes things. And the 5 Venom Spider is a killer weapon. It's like a lantern box, and you pull it open, and this actual spider is like a glowing spider is in there, and it unleashes this poison laced web that can ensnare like hundreds of people. It was used to wipe out tons of righteous heroes back in the day, and that's why Snake Chief, played by Lo Lie, wants to acquire it and use it. So it's a really deadly weapon, and there's only one way to defeat it. I won't tell you what that is, but there's one little trick that the heroes can use to overcome it. So it's a fabulous movie. I love the weapon. I really, you can probably tell I like Chor Yuen. I think he has the visuals are really great. A lot of people complain that his movies are hard to follow or there are too many characters. That can be true. I think this isn't one of the worst offenders in that regard. And my attitude with Chor Yuen is watch the movie, just kind of appreciate the visuals, and don't worry too much about following along the first time if you are confused. Sometimes you'll watch it and you'll get it. Sometimes if you just miss one little thing, it'll get a little confusing. So just enjoy the movie, and then if when you go back and watch it again, you'll get a better understanding of it. But this one was pretty easy to follow. Maybe watching some of the other Heaven Sword Dragon Saber stuff or reading some recaps of that before you watch this is a good idea. But I didn't have any trouble following it. And one of the things I liked is it's not just Heaven Sword Dragon Saber. It's like he pulled in a lot of elements from other movies and stuff. So like I said, there's Heaven Sword Dragon Saber, but there's also stuff from Eagle Shooting Heroes in here at the very beginning. I think I'm 100% sure on the Heaven Sword Dragon Saber. I'm about 90% sure on the Eagle Shooting Heroes, because the way that Susu and Hero Faye, who are like the heroic couple in this, the way they meet is a lot like the couple from Eagle Shooting Heroes, where she's dressed as a beggar and he mistakes her for a boy at first. So there might be other sources where that happens, because that's kind of dressing as a male and dressing as a beggar are sort of common, but that's so if he's drawing from another source, it's possible. Or if there's a section in Heaven Sword Dragon Saber I'm unaware of that wasn't in the series that I saw based on it in the movies, then maybe that's where it's from. But I think he's kind of combining different elements. I could be wrong though, and I'd certainly like to hear from others who might have more ideas than that. But one of the really charming things about this movie is the locations, the really inventive, fantastic locations. It's you have the sect headquarters, and they have this wonderful chamber that's like a central cylinder, and all around it are these little platform balconies where the different sub-chiefs, who all kind of represent different venomous insects, are seated, and then the head chief is way up high in his platform, and at the bottom is like a hall where they can receive visitors. And I just really like the way that's set up. It looks stunning. Chor Yuen just gives himself the freedom to invent as he wants, I think. So I mean, it's clearly based on some realistic architecture, but he just kind of goes off on tangents on his own. So from that central hall, it winds down a corridor to the main palace, and you come to this acidic pond with stone platforms that you have to walk across to get to the chief's hall. So I just like the way it's set up. You can, if you're a gamer, you can see it and see how it'd be totally useful in a game. And then the location where they've hidden the five venom spider is this tomb that's heavily trapped with, again, acidic pools and paling spikes, and this series of dragon-headed like fire lances, like really primitive guns, basically, that fire at somebody who steps in on a platform. So I don't know. I love the locations, the costumes as always, and the colors are spectacular. The characters pop out of the screen. There's much of this revolves around misunderstandings and the challenges that the couple face being from different sects, and so there's a lot of she's from an evil sect, so we have to murder her type exchanges. And I don't know. I just think it's a lot of fun, a lot of excitement, a lot of really aggressive enforcement of sect rules and regulations, and it's just an enjoyable movie. So this is my first time watching it, but I really, really liked it. The subs, I like the subtitles better on this one than the dubs. The dubs aren't too bad, but they have some problems. Number one, they're a little hard to hear at the beginning of the movie. Number two, they almost never really match the subs, and I don't know which one is more accurate. I'm going to assume it's the subs, because they don't have to worry about fitting it to what the characters say. But the dubs will say things that completely change the meaning of something. Like, it's still kind of the same, but there's one exchange where, depending on whether you believe the dub or the sub, it kind of changes things a lot. And there's another exchange where you're not sure if somebody's saying, "I want you to commit suicide," or "I want you to fight with me," and it depends on whether you buy what the sub is saying or the dub is saying. But the worst part of the dubs is that they Christianize a lot of the culture. So I don't know why they did that, but as an example, one of the characters mentions that he's going to go and retreat to practice his meditation, or something to that effect in the subs. And the dubs, he says he's going to go pray. And that's not such a bad thing, because you can see if it was dubbed in the 70s, they might turn that to pray, and because he goes and he meditates. But then in the dubbing, you hear him reciting what sounds, I think, like the Lord's Prayer. I don't remember the exact wording from the movie, but it was something like the Lord's Prayer. So it just seemed really off. And then later in the film, they're talking about reincarnation and meeting each other in the next life, and they change that in the dubbing to going to heaven and waiting until wait for me until you go to heaven to see me. So it changes the meaning of things considerably. But that said, the dubs aren't too bad. There is one actor who voices a couple of the villains and a couple other characters, I think, and he sounds like a teenager, and it just sounds off. It's if you could imagine like Corey Feldman from back in like the late '80s doing a dub, that's kind of what it sounds like, and I don't know, it's a little off. In fact, the guy's voice is very familiar, so I was really curious who the actor was, but it just sounded like too young a voice for this sort of husky, older sect leader that he was supposed to be voicing. So, but most of the other dubs, they did sound like, again, people. I think it's an old dub because everybody sounded like the way people talked in movies from the 60s and 70s. So it just kind of, there's kind of like a, I don't know, they all sound like 1950s and 60s Americans, speaking, and it just kind of takes you out of it a little bit. So I would definitely go with the dubs just for hearing sort of the atmosphere of the way people are speaking, and also the acting, because some of the dubbing doesn't do the acting justice. But aside from that, the dubbing was fine. I didn't have too many problems with it beyond those two complaints. And like I said, I think for a gamer, this is a great movie to watch. There's tons of, they use dungeons in the right way. It's like it's a great example of how to kind of have a dungeon be a location where a lot of the action takes place, where it's part of a bigger plot, part of a bigger sequence of events that are going on, and it's also like, when the heroes get to these locations, there's other characters there interacting with them. There's more drama, so it just kind of it flows in a way that is you could really kind of pull that into a campaign, a wuxia campaign, and make good use of locations by emulating some of the things this film does. So this is a great movie. Again, this is the Blu-ray version. I think it's the Swordmaster series, but I'm sure you can probably get this from either Wellgo USA or Celestial Pictures. If you do go to Celestial Pictures to get these, like I think this one is, this is a Celestial Pictures, I believe. Sometimes when you get them like this, they're not always in region for you, so just make sure you check the region, and also check to make sure that it actually has English, because I've gotten movies like this where there was no English subtitles before. It's very rare that happens, but you just want to check, because you don't want to get one and then realize, oh, this is subbed in Vietnamese or subbed in Thai, not in English. So I highly recommend it. Chor Yuen, 1976. Great movie. It should be available on Amazon. It's only like $9. I don't know if they have it in DVD, but if they do, I don't think you're going to lose any image quality on it. As long as it says like Swordsmaster series on it, it'll probably look about the same as this one, I'm guessing. But I like this copy. I watched it twice. Once last night, once this morning. I'll probably watch it again in a couple of weeks. It's definitely, one of the better Chor Yuen movies I've seen, and it's very fantastic and very imaginative. So I highly recommend it, and I will be on again, hopefully with another review. And I don't know what I'm going to do next. I might do. I'm kind of enjoying doing movies that are new to me too, so I think I might try to do that. But I have promised to go over some of the inspirations for Aggregate. So we'll see what ends up happening. Until then, I will talk to you later.